cost her more than she'd earned. Some artists say they still haven't been paid. Justice Marcia Ayres Caesar is back on the High Court bench 8 years after she was unlawfully forced to resign. In March, the Privy Council ruled her 2017 resignation was unconstitutional and coerced by the Judicial and Legal Service Commission. She resumed duties in May and is now assigned to the Civil High Court. Compensation talks are ongoing. Her case is seen as a major legal victory for judicial independence. Internationally, U.S. President Donald Trump has suspended entry of foreign students to Harvard University for 6 months, citing national security concerns. The proclamation also suggests visas can be revoked for current international students. This comes amid an escalating legal battle between the White House and Harvard over civil rights and funding. Harvard calls the move retaliatory and unconstitutional. Well, that's your news to the hour on WESN. I'm Naomi Malknish. Thanks for watching.
WESN.
This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. Welcome to the program, everybody here on WESN. On this edition of the program, our guest is Ms. Nicole O. Alexander. She describes herself as a clinical administrative dietitian. We'll get to what she does for a living in a moment, but the discussion, as you would see, is called Managing Bipolar Disorder. This is said to be characterized by periods of depression and periods of abnormally elevated mood that each lasts for days to weeks. It is usually called manic depressiveness, and it causes unusual shifts in a person's mood. Ms. Alexander has been living with the effects of bipolar disorder for some time. She's been motivated by these very experiences to talk about it and its effects on the life she sometimes continues to live. Good to see you. Thanks for coming. Thanks for taking having the courage to come and talk about this. You're a graduate of the University of the West Indies, of the Lockjack Business School, and you to the Caribbean Food and Nutrition Institute in the West Regional Health Authority, stuff like that. So you are into food and food stuff. Let's talk a little bit about that. I'm calling it food stuff, but what I mean, all the things having to do with nutrition.
Right, so for correction, it's not food and food stuff, right? Right. It's nutrition and dietetics.
Right.
Dietetics is the science of food and what food does for us. Because as one of my lecturers, Dr. Nichols, he has said, he's at UE, we were all once nutrients. So nutrients along with genetic makeup, so it's not food stuff, right. It's dietetics. Yes,
so
I've been...
I mean, in the normal parlance, so if we talk about food stuff, I mean, that may be a corruption of what the term really is, right?
Yes,
so, but there's no such thing as food stuff, that's what you're saying?
Yes. Yeah. What's that? No such thing as what?
Food stuff.
Food stuff?
In a real sense.
No, when it comes to, no, the way how it comes across, because having experience, as I said, I'm 52 years old, having experience when you hear someone is working as a dietitian or anyone who is working in the field of nutrition and dietetics. So we have cooks, we may have food service workers. They are usually looked as the last rung in the healthcare sector, which food should be, just as medicine, should be treated as top tier.
Yeah. All right, so you've been, should I say living with, I said that in the opening, with the effects of bipolar disorder for some time now. You've been motivated to talk about the experiences and to talk about it, sort of demystify it a good bit. Now, I want to go back to you sort of volunteered your age. A lot of women don't do that. You have to guess on how old a woman is.
Why hide? The more you hide, the more old you look. You do it yourself. Any woman you see hiding their age, you always look older. But, okay, so back to me. The topic is managing bipolar disorder.
Right.
In 2013, I believe it was in June, I had what you call a manic episode. I had a manic episode. All because my mom had died, She died probably a year and a half prior, and I wasn't coping too well with it. And then I tried to continue living, but I wasn't doing a good job at it. In hindsight, I could say that now.
So
yeah?
You call it a manic episode, and you said that was more than a year after your mother
A year and a
died.
half, about a year and a half.
So you were dealing with it sort of quietly, silently, unbeknownst to other people, but you know you were dealing with it. And something happened a year and a half later that had to do with her death.
Well, it's not only her death, it's that I was trying to cope with living after she had passed.
Okay.
Living after she had passed. You know, Mom was there. She was a stabilizing force, a factor in my life for 37 years. And being that she was not there anymore, I think that was a factor of me becoming manic. But when they say manic, it's basically that for some days, you may not have been sleeping correctly. You may have about 2-3 hours of sleep. You may feel this buzz. In hindsight, I can say that now. You may feel this sort of buzz. Your mind is working overtime. And I like my manic because in my manic, I have so many different ideas that I could put down on paper that you tend to jot down everything on paper. I do it like that. So when I could look back and say, hey, this is, yeah. So in a case like that, I was sent to the hospital. I think I stayed for like a week, and they diagnosed you after that week, which I find was so quickly. With in one episode, they could do that because they also engage your relatives, your family, brothers and sisters, and they interview them and ask them a lot of stuff. So they probably asked if Nicole was depressed growing up or whatever. I don't know what they did. But they diagnosed with bipolar disorder 1, and they prescribed Depakote and Risperdal, and I, being Nicole Alexander, I took the medication in the hospital, and when I left, I probably took it for like a week, because it had you feeling kind of, how should I say, like not yourself. You felt kind of loopy, if that's a word. I think you felt loopy. You felt that you were here, but you're not here.
Sort of out of it.
Out of it. Yeah. That is me. That's my thing. So I've decided to not go that route. And after that, I came out of it. I went to clinic. They do a great job, I must say, of counseling and so on. You could get that counseling if you wish.
Yeah. So sometimes you in a high place, and then other times you're in a low place. That's it. And that's why it's called manic depressive. Is it the same thing as what we refer to as somebody being manic depressive?
Yes, it used to be called manic depressive. It used to be called that. So when we look at the American Psychiatric Association, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, which is the DSM-5,
yeah.
As you said, it's a group of brain disorders that cause extreme fluctuations in persons' mood, energy, and ability to function. And I've seen that in me. I'll function for like a few years, quite okay. And then, right, so we looking at 2013, I was fairly okay. And then in 2018, I had another episode. But it's always something connected with something. Something was the connection. I think I had assisted in food service management in the dietetic internship with one of a doctor. And she, when I say doctor in education, yeah. And she, right, because of my expertise and experience, I had to go out and monitor the dietetic interns when they were doing the food service rotation. So I went and I did that, and I think I got paid actually. I got paid, I think, $13,000 for 2 months stint. That's money for you, because I mean, in any sector of government, you're not getting that money one time, right? So I think something happened, and I did have a manic episode. I wasn't feeling well. I don't know if it was my blood sugar. I don't know what it was. I just was not feeling well. Yet again, because I wasn't sleeping well. And all these times are mainly the second time I lived alone.
So you can remember, well, what was the effect of that not feeling well?
Right, so I went home. I was living in Shafley at that time. I went home and I came back out. I supposed to go and sleep, but I just came back out and I walked down the road. I went to SBCS and I told the lady, look, I'm not feeling well, something. And I think from that, somebody carried me across to St. Joseph Health, and they wanted to give me a shot. And I think I was talking about going on some plane or some strippiness like that. Something. But when I got the shot, it didn't even do anything to me. It didn't knock me out or anything like that. I was still alert and everything. So
but it didn't calm you. You required being calmed down, or
not necessarily like what? Like if I was angry or no. In my case, I don't get angry. Like no,
but
because
some people do.
It seems so because when I mentioned this to someone last week, I had a situation that I had to mention something. She said, "Are you the angry one type?" I was like, not to my knowledge that people with bipolar they get angry. So I don't know. This is not me, but apparently they do. So I have to do some more research on that.
All right, what I want to establish is that manic depressiveness, a lot of us in the ordinary world class it or classify it as a kind of mental disorder, a kind of mental illness. So people, so, that is a form of madness. Is it? Strictly speaking,
it's an imbalance in the brain.
Yeah.
It's an imbalance in the brain. Just like if one has diabetes, that will be an imbalance in blood sugars. Just like if one has high blood pressure, their blood pressure goes high, needs to be managed and maintained. So it's the same thing. You have an imbalance in your brain chemistry. You have an imbalance. So you're not mad. And if we were to say that, then we will look at the greats of the world there were great people who were diagnosed with bipolar disorder or purported to be diagnosed with bipolar disorder, like Dr. Eric Williams, to name one, and other people.
You hear stuff about people like Beethoven and other people
yes.
like that. But ordinary thinking, I suppose, sort of darkness kind of thinking causes some of us to put all those kinds of
as mad people, they're mad.
Yeah,
they're mad.
It's a form of mental illness.
Yes.
So it is not, bipolar disorder does not render somebody a candidate for St. Anne's, for instance.
I cannot say that. I cannot say. It depends on, because there are two different bipolar, or three. When I was reading, it's three of them, right? So bipolar disorders is categorized, is a category that includes three main diagnoses: bipolar 1, bipolar 2, and cyclothymic disorder. So it's three disorders. So it depends on what the psychiatrist sees and so forth. But they really quickly want, they would prefer you to go St. Anne's. Because in my first episode, thank God my sister was there. She also works for the health sector. They wanted to send me St. Anne's, but I had no reason to go to St. Anne's. Honestly, I was not destroying anybody. I was not fighting anybody. I was not angry with anybody per se. It's more to myself and so on. So I was so glad I did not get to go St. Anne's. I didn't have to go St. Anne's. So in light of being around persons, and Trinbagonians need to educate themselves a little more when it comes to bipolar disorder, when it comes to other mental health challenges, right? Because we do have a large percentage of Trinbagonians that suffer or live with depression, I should say. Live with depression.
When you say a large percentage?
Well, I read one of our flyers, and that came from they were looking at depression. So it was a reputable source. Over 300,000 persons in Trinidad and Tobago have depression. So that young lady, I believe she killed herself also, and that two children in Tobago. Is it Tobago? Right, it's being purported. I think she was depressed. I don't know the whole story, I don't know. But yeah. So the thing is, people need to wake up and realize that someone in their family may have some sort of anxiety, they may have depression, they may be bipolar, they may have schizophrenia, so forth. Yeah. But that doesn't make you a mad person. Especially, let's stay focused on bipolar. You're not mad.
And
You're not mad.
This is what I wanted to get to, not necessarily that I wanted to sort of stay there for staying their sake, but I remember going to, there's this lady, she has two sons. One of them, he's a fabulous artist. I've seen some of his work and so on. But he was behaving in a kind of way that she couldn't deal with, and people around her couldn't deal with, and he ended up being sent to St. Anne's, and I went with her one day to see him. I was struck by the fact that he was saying, "Mommy, I have no right to be in here. Whatever the case was, I have no right to be in here. Wow. I don't belong in here." And I did a long conversation. Sometime after that, yeah, fabulous art exhibition, and I went there, and I'm saying, but it is a fact that in other cases, such people are, if you talk about the late great Dr. Williams and people like that, and some of the great musicians of the world, you know, very talented people. So
and their IQs are high. I sure if they do a testing of persons who have bipolar disorder, and they test their IQs, I'm sure they will come up with some high IQ persons. They will, they will.
How is the fight or the struggle to separate bipolar disorder from mental illness? And you have to keep explaining to people, well, I'm not crazy. And
no, okay, the thing is, it's only now, Andy, let me tell you honestly, it's only now I'm saying this, you know, it's only now I'm coming out and saying this. I did not agree with the diagnosis. But then when I saw a pattern occurring, I said something had to be challenged, and something has to be kind of off, Nicole, in the sense of you seeing cyclic patterns. It's all about cyclic patterns, and I've seen it. So for me, it's only now I'm agreeing to say that I have a challenge. So for the past 4 months, Andy, I've been in a tailspin. Yeah. I've been in a tailspin. I was quite depressed.
I want to get to talk about how that manifests itself. But before I want to thank you on behalf of people who are looking at this program for having the courage to want to talk about it, because you think talking about it will help others, some of us, understand what this thing is and how to treat it and how to live with it.
But actually, Andy, there was a lady, and I can't remember her name, that's some years ago. She was on papers, and she's a prominent person. She has this job, prominent, and doing very well. She had bipolar disorder, and she was doing very well. She was very brave to come out and say whatnot. I can't recall who it is, but I would love to. But the thing is, one deficiency we have in our islands, our twin island, a bipolar support group, a bipolar disorder support group. We need to have one like that, and I don't mind assisting and managing bipolar group for us to have that support group. So how we are in modern times, we don't necessarily have to meet in person now. We could just be online, meet once a month, once every 6 months, discuss challenges that we are having. Discuss, because as I said, these are not just people who every day run in the mill. Some persons with bipolar disorder have a lot of responsibility. Yeah. They have a lot of responsibility.
How when you talk about it, did you have to consider sort of jumping hoops to decide to talk about it? So you're not yet in a position to know the effects of having come out as they say, they use that for
because I'm now coming out. I'm now coming out. Yeah. People suspected. I think some persons suspected, and how would listen, Andy, I don't want us to not look at the spiritual aspect of it.
All right.
Because man is made up of body, mind, and soul. Yeah. We're not just this flesh. We have a soul that became living, according to, if you believe in the Master, that according to God, when He created us, He breathed into us and we became a living soul. So we need to look at body, mind, and soul. So I said all that to say this. It occurred, I returned to work in 2009 in North Central Regional Health Authority.
NCRHA.
Yes, yes. And in our pantry area, there's a board, blackboard, that you could put notices and different things you wish to write. And I had just written on it a Bible verse, some simple verse. And this person in work, according to people, like it rubbed her the wrong way. And she put Nicole bipolar. Put up my name big and bipolar. I had to call HR about it. I didn't think about it. That word wasn't even in my vocabulary at that time, and that was 2009. And I think, Andy, to be honest, that sat in my spirit, you know. To be honest, when I think about it, I spoke with my sisters. They are very supportive. Alison, Sandra, Shoma, who is Sandra, and June, very supportive. I thank God for them.
Because she may have had some insight into it, or
No, this was 2009.
Yeah. No, what I mean,
she probably thought I was, she probably thought I was misbehaving. I don't know. Because people think that when you change your mind, remember when I was always in a supervisory position, I started off as a dietetic technician, and I always had dietetic assistants to supervise, etc., right? So people always think that if you change your mind because you see different things coming your way as a manager, when you assess certain things, you may have to rescind on some decision, or you stick with a decision and change something. So some people always think it's, oh, you're bipolar. In bipolar in Trinidad and Tobago just means that you're changing your mind, you know. I'm talking to somebody, and because I don't want to do this again, I decide I want to do this week, and next week I assess myself, because it's not spiritually enhancing for me, or it's not physically enhancing for me. I decide, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. So the person will say, you're bipolar. That's how Trinbagonians think bipolar disorder is, what it means.
But that interpretation is not correct.
It's not correct. It's not correct, fully correct. Right? So I was telling you that this young lady saying that, I think it sat in my spirit. And for anything to manifest as a human being, it has to get into your spirit.
Yeah, but there's some of us who are absolutely, you know, sort of worryingly and infuriating, if you want to call it that, fussy about all kinds of things.
Yes,
they're never happy with how something turns out. They think it could always be better. And that could drive some people crazy.
But you could get that with a type A personality. I'm a type A personality in the assessment. I think I am a type A, and I always wanted things to be a specific way. From school days, like I could remember going home and what I was doing, going to St. George's College and doing home ec, food and nutrition, plus the home economics parts, management, food and nutrition and management, home management. And I always needed to get my ingredients, so whatever I needed to get. And I would always tell my mom, I need this, and they made sure and got it for me. They made sure and got it for me, and I needed things in a certain way.
Yeah, and if you didn't get it, you could flare up.
No. I never threw any tantrum like that, but they got it. I was there. I was the 7th, and I was the last girl. 2 boys were after me. And they got it, So I never had to throw a tantrum and say.
Some people throw tantrums, and that is not necessarily somebody who may be a candidate for it. There's just some of us who are tantrumers.
Very fussy, yeah. That doesn't mean to say they're bipolar. Because
what that is leading up to is the extent to which some of us, whatever we may be carrying, sort of at times misidentify. I don't want to use the word diagnose because we can't diagnose, but misidentify and misclassify people based on some parts of their behavior.
True. I like that. Misidentify. Because we have doctors in Trinbago too, you know, we like to diagnose persons and we wrongfully diagnose them. We don't say that. So the thing with me, I'm so glad now, I would say after the past 4 months and beyond, because what happens, pressure, you see, having to deal with stress, it could be work stress, it could be financial stress, it could be emotional stress. It makes, it makes things worse for you.
How did this, to the best of your understanding, affect your relationships with people generally?
As you say, I think people probably think I'm a bit difficult. Yeah, I'm a bit difficult. I guess so.
One of the questions I have down here, how does it affect approaching intimate relationships?
Oh boy, Andy, I'm single, never married. But it's not just that, it's my upbringing. Remember, you made up of all your experiences and what you think in your head. Because I was talking to Ryan earlier. I grew up in church. So getting involved in certain issues wasn't what we were taught to get involved in. So therefore you kept yourself for a period of time until I think water was more than flour. I don't have to speak in plain English. You're right, water was more than flour. But no, but then you too, you would like a certain kind of person in your life and vice versa. And if it didn't manifest, it didn't come, it's no fuss. Because at the end of the day, Andy, I prefer to be single and happy than be hitched or married and unhappy. Because let me tell you, what is happening currently, a lot of young men, I told you my age, but young men in their 30s.
Which I say it's
I have no problem with that. A
lot of women don't volunteer.
That's dumb.
We went over that.
That's dumb. To me, that doesn't make sense. To me, every time I see a woman always hiding her age, she looks older than her age. That's what I have come to. Why hide? Why? Because you think you wouldn't be on the market? mind you, you may be on the market. Yeah, so I'm telling you, Andy, I was saying that a lot of young men now who don't want to work, or they will work but look for someone who's not even young anymore, because I'm not young anymore, I'm within, right? So they may look for a woman who's progressive to some extent, think she's working, she has a car and whatnot, she lives in her apartment or has her own home. And they prey on women, they prey on you. So for instance, when you meet people, it's weird, they asking you like, which is weird, I had to put that man in his place, how much I'm working for, and he could manage my money, all because he wants to pay a mortgage, you know. And he has 3 different baby mamas. This is Trinidad I'm talking about it. 3 different baby mamas, and telling me he never married but had on a ring on his finger sometime in some picture. Please, please, please. That's why it's always good to, I don't care what people say, you need a guidance from God to give you directive on what to do with your life. So yes, it has been challenging.
As far as that is concerned, you haven't gotten that divine guidance just yet.
No, I didn't ask for it. I never asked God, God, I need to get married and I need this person. Who is this one?
Yeah.
Can I?
Why? I'm not sure you just turn off the phone or put it away.
Hello? Yes, it is, but I'm on TV. Bye-bye. I'm busy now. Call me back later. Bye.
That is a first.
Well, it's Nicole's first for everything. Let me just see if I can, right.
Yeah, I wanted to get to the point where if you know, so you are, such a person, and you're trying to get a mate, whether or not it is advisable to get a mate who's sort of walking the same road.
No, why should I want somebody who has bipolar disorder?
Because you all could understand each other.
No, that'd be crazy. That's like somebody saying you have HIV, so you have to get somebody who's HIV, or you have high blood pressure, you have to get somebody who has high blood pressure, or you have renal disease. That doesn't make sense, Andy. You get someone who is able to manage. Love covers a multitude of sin. Love covers a multitude of sin. And being bipolar is not something that God cannot heal. You see, we live in this 2x4 world, and some people don't believe in God, they don't believe in the divine, they don't believe, yes, you take your medication, yes. You take your medication, yes. And we're supposed to be talking about nutrition, but I feel I have to come on another time to speak about that. Yeah. But you take your medication. If you're so inclined, your doctor has guided you, take your medication, you need to take X, Y, and Z, all well and
so you're saying that with diets as well?
Diet, exercise, medication.
So what kind of things that you advisably should eat as opposed to what you shouldn't?
Okay, so you want to have a clean diet. A clean diet meaning you want to not have too many processed foods. Because remember, we're talking about brain chemistry along with our gut chemistry, and they have seen that over the years. They have done their research now. They're seeing there's a connection between your gut and your brain balance and chemistry. So therefore, any person, you don't necessarily need to be having any mental illness or any challenges like that. You need to try to eat as clean as possible, meaning you don't want to avoid processed foods, so white flour, white pasta, even flour in the whole. You want to stay away from wheat, because some people have IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, that wheat affects them. So, and remember what we're saying, once you have a challenge here, it could affect here. So you want to stay away from things like that. You want to go more fresh fruits and vegetables. Fresh fruits and vegetables. I'm laughing because that's a challenge. That's a challenge because we're using too many chemicals in Trinidad and Tobago. I bought a watermelon and the watermelon melted like we using too many chemicals.
It was grown with chemicals, too much chemicals.
It's not healthy. It's not healthy for you. You could try to wash out whatever the outside of the watermelon. Who is this?
Well,
yes,
you should just take the phone off.
I don't know, actually. I don't know how to do this food. I just got it. I don't know how to do this food. Anyhow, yes. So I was telling you, yes. So we ought to have our fruits and vegetables because you want to have that array of colors with all your vitamins and minerals. So you have your vitamin A, B, C, your water-soluble ones, and then you have your fat-soluble vitamins. So you want to eat fish. Oily fish, if you could afford that kind of oily fish kind of thing.
Like what? I mean,
salmon, pink salmon if you could. You want sardines, good sardines, not what they tend to sell sometimes. Because sometimes you get the lower brand sardines, and when you open it, you see these sardines red, pink.
Well, that's
on the
fabulous
inside.
because when I was growing up and you know, we had to have sardines and so on, you felt that that was because they couldn't afford anything more.
No, it's great.
Sardines came.
Sardines, Mr. Expensive now, and sardines are very good. But what I'm saying, some brands tend to be of a lower substandard quality than those that we know. I wouldn't call names, but there are certain brands, when you open the can of sardine, you're seeing it pink on the inside, and that's not, they didn't process it properly.
That's not good.
The temperature, you see that where it started to decay a bit.
But generally speaking, you shouldn't look down on sardines as because it's, I'm saying with
No, with the bones, you have your calcium, you have your oils from it, from the fish oils. Sardine is awesome. I knew someone, and he was a big position. He would just open a can of sardine without adding lime or anything. And he's a brilliant person. I mean, not because he say the sardine makes him brilliant, but you know, but Andy, it's a lot. So you want to eat clean, so you want to have your fruits, your vegetables, but you want to source them from a good source in the sense of what I tend to do, I go market or I may buy from a supermarket. So what you want to do, you want to buy your fruits and vegetables, you want to, especially vegetables, put it in the crisper. The crisper is the thing on the bottom of the fridge, and you observe it. If it stayed 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, you know for sure that it's low in pesticides and so on. Yeah.
So the longer it lasts in the fridge, the better it is to be consumed.
The more organic it is, the more organic. Yeah. So once you put something in the fridge and you see it begins to melt, even with pumpkin. You put it in, this is strange.
Well,
yes,
yeah, okay,
pumpkin, and you put it in your fridge, you see it's melting away.
I suspect we have to have a part 2 and probably part 3.
Yeah. How much time we have again?
We out of time.
Serious? This is interesting. Okay, great.
Fabulous.
So we need to have that bipolar disorder support group. Yeah? We need to educate our persons and so on.
All right, we'll pick it up on the other side at another point in time. But thank you very much. This has been fabulous. Nicole O. Alexander, managing and living with bipolar disorder. This has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
WESN.
Do you need treatment for obesity or any related abdominal procedures? The community hospital now